I'm Sarah Canney, and this is my live Instagram show, Showing Up, Courageous Conversations with Women Who Are Following Their Heart. Welcome to episode 1 with Mary Johnson. Good evening, wherever you are. Good morning. I'm so glad that you're joining me today. This is the first episode of this live show, which isn't so much a show as it is a showing up. That's what I'm calling it. My name is Sarah Canney, and I am the author of RunFarGirl.com and the founder and host of the women's running retreat, Rise.Run.Retreat. And this show is really about sharing stories and having a conversation with women who are following their heart. We're not so much focusing in on the success as we are talking about the process and talking about some of the fears, obstacles, setbacks, and struggles that they've faced and how they've overcome those to be where they are today. So I'm really excited to introduce my first guest. She worked in the fashion industry for 6 years for brands like Coach, Tommy Hilfiger, Marc Jacobs, Juicy Couture, left that career to start her own company, Lift, Run, Perform. She now coaches women for running and strength, and she has 7 women working with her. So she's got a team of women who have joined her company. So I'm super excited to bring on Mary Johnson. Let's roll with this. We are live, so we are just going to roll with whatever is going on.
Hey, I'm scantily clad. I was like, maybe I should cover up.
You're in Florida, so we can all be jealous, or at least those of us who are in New England. So good. You're all good.
Okay. Yeah.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Thanks so much for doing this with me and being my first person, my guinea pig.
Yeah. I've been looking forward to this all morning.
Oh, fantastic. I love it. So I think we're going to just dive right in because I just want to be mindful of time. So we're just going to dive right in I gave everyone just a little bit of a background of sort of the industry that you came from. You came from fashion, and you started Lift, Run, Perform in 2017. But I want to go back to that moment or that time in your life where you transitioned out of the fashion industry and sort of found yourself without a job.
Well, I describe it. It was like being in The Bachelor where they laid me off, and I was like, you don't like me? It was very much I was very grateful that it was happening, but no one likes to feel rejected. So that was the first emotion that I had. I was just pissed because I also had and also it's a little windy. So if you need me to go inside, just say something and I'll.
No, I can hear you fine. So I think we're good.
What I found, at least where I was with fashion, was that a lot of it was political. And it very much my boss liked me, but my boss's boss didn't like me. So I just clashed with the wrong people. And, it came at a really good time. But of course, in the moment, it was a feeling of rejection and what do you mean you don't want me to work here anymore? What do you mean you don't want me on your team? And so my initial reaction was devastated. And then of course panic because you're holy shit, I don't have a job and I need a job. And and then of course they escort you to a car and well, I didn't get escorted. I got to clean my desk and I got taken to a big car and got driven to my car because I was commuting. So I got put in a Tahoe and brought to, it was very bachelorette-like. I was this is swanky.
Go.
And then I met up with my husband and I was well, that job's over. And we got lunch and then I went to bed. He jokes that I like went on a detox for like 2 weeks where all I did was just sleep because I was so burned out and I was so just like, that job was just not the one for me. And I knew it. And it took me a week or two of just like being in my own emotions and sleeping it off. And then I was seeing a therapist at the time. So thankfully I was like talking it over with her. And I remember going to her probably the second week I was without a job. And she was like, "You're very calm about this." And I was just like, she was like, "I've been waiting for you to like have this panic attack." And I'm like, "No, I'm just going to figure out what I'm doing next." And my whole thing was like, look, if I'm a barista at Starbucks, okay, I'll make it work. I'll figure out, I'll go be a waitress. I'll go figure it out until I'm ready for the next thing. I have no qualms or egos about doing something else until I really figure out what I want to do. And that was the headspace that I was in. And then, you know, I ended up making a plan for myself and executing it. But I think that, like, to answer your question, like the initial, like, shit, that lasted like a week or two. And then I was just like, you know, you'll make it work. Even if you work at Starbucks, that's cool too.
What do you think it was that allowed you to be so calm about it? Because I mean, anyone who's ever been laid off probably has that like rejected feeling, that like, oh shit, how am I going to pay my bills moment.
Yeah.
So where do you think that calm came from, where you were okay with like being, I mean, we're not knocking baristas at Starbucks, but when you've had a career for 6 years and then you're not in that career anymore, yeah, that's tough. So how were you so calm about it?
Honestly, the way I've grown up, my mom is nuts, but she always encouraged me to get a job. If I like, for when I was 16, I wanted a cell phone, and my mom was like, "Okay, get a job." And that's how I learned to get what I wanted, was to work for it. So at the age of 16, I went downtown. I lived in this like little tourist town, and I did the job that no one wanted, which was breakfast hostessing, because you had to get there at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
And so I think because I grew up in this like environment of, you just have to work for what you need. I was like, I'll make it work. Of course I have a husband, and that was a very like, I am very lucky that I was put in that situation, that I have insurance. I have someone, I had a house, I had a home, I had a bed. If all hell broke loose, like my husband could probably, you know, help me. I did get severance when I got laid off. So I was in a good position at first. But I think really just like my mom brought me up to be like, work for what you want. And like, so I was a breakfast waitress for like years. That's how I paid my cell phone bill. Like, all my friends were on their parents' family plan. My mom would never let me do it because it meant that she would have to sign my contract. And so she was like, "I'm going to make you pay as you go." And that was like, I was the weird friend that had a pay as you go phone. But like, I knew that I was responsible of my cell phone, and that like no one else was. And that's like, but it taught me a good lesson, because I was like, I'm the only one that's responsible of this.
So when you sat down to kind of write your plan of like, okay, these are my next steps, like what was that plan? What were the ideas that were popping into your head as you were trying to figure out what was next?
So I had been looking into physical therapy schools. That was a very, I mean, I knew that would be a huge hurdle, because all my undergrad degree.
What's your undergrad? Oh, you were going to say, yeah.
Yeah, my undergrad degree is in marketing.
Okay.
So like my undergrad I went to a liberal arts college. So I do have, you know, very basic prereqs, but also I had like economics and accounting and finance. So I didn't have biology and chemistry, and I didn't have any sciences. So I knew that if I decided to go back to physical therapy school, I would not only have to go back to school, but I would have to go back to get my prereqs at a community college, which would have been fine, but just time.
Yeah.
And I don't think I really was opposed to that, but I also then spoke to a lot of physical therapists. So that was like my number one thing. I got laid off and I was like, I need to just ask the questions. So I started asking questions to professionals. I spoke with physical therapists. I spoke to people in PT school. I spoke to, eventually, what led me down this career path. I spoke to a coach at the gym where I had been working out, to learn about personal training, fitness, coaching, strength and conditioning. So my plan of attack was just to learn more and ask questions. And then I also put a timeline on myself. I said, I'm going to have my shit figured out by the fall. So I had been laid off in March.
Okay.
So I was like, I'm going to give myself this summer. I'm going to let myself enjoy it. But by the fall, I'm going to have something figured out. Even if it is I'm a waitress. I'm going to let myself enjoy the summer and then get to the fall. So ultimately, I talked to a lot of people, and then I had coffee with this coach at where I work now, Ramphone Training Systems, and he sat down with me for an hour, and it turned into me getting an internship, which I just didn't expect. I just sat down to be like, okay, let's talk about your career, and he was like, well, do you want to intern here? And I was like, no, there's no girls there. That's weird. And I had this very sexist view of strength and conditioning where I was like, I don't think girls can belong. And he was like, no, you can. And he said the number one piece of advice that I always have thought about, and I still think about it. And I was like, but that's really scary. There's no females, there's no girls, I don't know anything. I'd done a sport in college, but I didn't know anything about strength. And he goes, well, the thing about fear is that you just have to start doing it. And when you just keep doing it, it doesn't become so scary anymore. And then you're over it. And then you've got something else to be scared about. And I was like, I think I thought about that every single day I walked into that gym because I was terrified. But I did it, and I don't know, it's humbling because it's I'm with kids that are interning in college, and here I am in my late 20s, starting over. But
yeah, that's tough. I mean, that's tough. But I think what he said about fear is true for everything. Everything seems really big and scary until you just put your foot in the door and give it a try. And then the less scary it seems. So,
and just
doing
it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I kind of love what you said about you were just asking a lot of questions, whether it's calling up people that are in the industry you want to be in, or being so I think that's the key to kind of, and it's almost a great way to sort of process things. The more questions you ask, the more you kind of process what you're thinking and the direction you want to go in. So you worked at Renfro and you still do, but when did the idea of Run Perform kind of come into your head, and what was that sort of thought process like?
Oh, Tina. Hi, Tina. I started running coaching a year prior. I was under the McCurdy Train umbrella. I had been working with James as an athlete, and then now there's of course sirens going on. I'm like,
it's fine. We're just gonna roll with it.
Okay. So I had been working with James as an athlete, and James was like, I'm building this business. Would you like to coach with me? I was like, are you sure? I don't know why I'm so, my first, it's a personal flaw. My first reaction is always me? I can't do that, but no, you can. And I think that's what I've started to learn through all this is you can do anything. You can be a coach. You can start a podcast. You can write a blog. If you want to do it, you can do it. Your first reaction will be fear, but you can mitigate that.
Mm-hmm.
So I started coaching with James. He taught me pretty much a lot, though of course I had been running, not only with him, but I had been running for a while. And I had a general concept of endurance sports training concepts. And I pretty much just dove in. I had maybe 10 athletes. and I just focused on those 10 athletes for my first summer. And then once I had been with that group for about a year, I kind of was ready to make a jump and make the change. And so combined with one of my best friends, her name is Rochelle. Rochelle and I were like, let's do this thing. And I was already kind of going to start the LLC and do that whole thing by myself. And Rochelle was like, well, I'll coach with you too. And it just kind of became a duo thing. And I went for it. One day, it initially started as like a strength training concept. I wanted to do virtual strength training. I had gone to a Wazelle bird camp and I had done a presentation and realized that so many of the women that I presented to were just terrified of lifting, mostly because of confidence.
Yeah.
And I got home from that trip and I was like, women need to just feel like they can do this, because especially runners, because it's not our normal strength training is not something that it's inherent to us. We like entering into a gym, even the big box gyms, like it's intimidating. And so if we don't go in with a plan, if we don't go in knowing what a squat is, knowing kind of what we're doing, it's a really scary place to be in. So initially Lift Run Perform was just going to be virtual strength training. And what it evolved, and it evolved quickly, was pulling in the running coaching that I was already doing under the same umbrella, under the same LLC, just because I was already doing it. I was trying to run all of the money through like Ranfone, and my boss at Ranfone was like, don't do that, just do your own thing. And he was very much like, dive in, do it, don't have fear. And so I called every single one of my running people and I was like, I'm doing this weird thing. Don't have to come with me, but I would love if you did. So I'm going to be doing the strength and running thing. And what LRP has evolved is way more than I anticipated. I was just like, I'm just going to do this thing under my own umbrella. And then it's turned into something where more women are involved, where people are involved. So it's turned into something that's really cool. But that was never the intention.
Yeah. I mean, going back to sort of when you first decided to take the step, what were some of the fears that kind of or doubts that popped into your mind as you were kind of going through the process of like, okay, let's do the LLC, let's make this an actual thing? Like, what were some of those things that were coming up for you?
Oh, I just didn't know if there are so many little pieces, right? Like, you've got to open a bank account, you've got to do your own billing, you've got to do a website. And I just didn't know. I just kind of had to figure it all out. And then I didn't have, like, I was confident in what I knew, but, you know, I felt very safe under another coaching umbrella because I had other people to ask questions to. And Rochelle and I had this really good conversation where she was like, you know, I've got you and you've got me. And like, together, we're going to figure this out. So I think having somebody to really, of course, my husband has supported me, but, you know, I can't ask him about workouts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So a big hesitation was like, what if I don't know what I'm doing? Which is like, of course you know what you're doing. But I think we're all inherently going to have the fear of like, especially as coaches, right? Like, is this the right thing to do for this athlete? And you go with your gut, you ask people. I think the coach who thinks they know everything is alarming. So I've never been that coach, but I think that was probably one of the biggest hesitations was like, what if I don't know what I'm doing? But I'm like, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Just have confidence. So that on top of the logistical stuff, like billing and websites.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like, and I know that this is true for me as well, just having people who are in your corner who encourage you, who you can bounce ideas off of and kind of talk through your fears. Like, I feel like if I keep the fear inside and stuff it down, then it just like gets blown way out of proportion. So yeah, it's really good to have the people that you can talk to and sort of talk through things with. What do you think are some of the biggest obstacles that you've faced since starting Lift Run Perform?
Making sure I'm making the right choices for like as a whole. Because when you bring in people, it's not just yourself anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So from a adding coaching perspective, because that's the thing, like I never imagined adding coaches. But when the demand got large enough, it made sense.
Yeah.
So I think just like making sure that the right business decisions were being done has always been something that, you know, like, should I add this person? Or, you know, I don't want to hurt someone's feelings if I tell them that I'm full and can't take on people anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's like, but those are, in the big scheme of things, those are small worries. I would, like, I've been pretty lucky. So the way it works is that they're like, all coaches, and this is how purely my structure is formed. And I know some of the other ones, but each coach is considered a contractor. So they actually make most of, like, a very large percentage of what their coaching portion is. I don't take any. It goes back to the website. It goes back to emails. It goes back to the insurance that I pay, that therefore they benefit others. So
it keeps the umbrella up.
Yeah, it keeps the umbrella up, really. So, and so that's the thing, right? Like, I'm not like reaping all this money and being like, you know what I mean? It's just part of the team, because here's the thing, insurance is expensive, but if together we can split that cost, that's going to be a lot. Sorry. My mother-in-law is calling me. If we can all split that cost, it's going to help all of us, not just me. So, I mean, I've been really lucky about that, but I think just like making right business decisions in terms of like adding people that make sense, and doing the, like, number one is doing best by the people who get coached by us. So like whenever I get overwhelmed with work, life, whatever, I'm always like, okay, my priority are the people who are my one-on-one athletes, period, the end. I'm going to ignore my email. I'm going to ignore other stuff. I need to make sure that the people I coach are being taken care of and supported first and foremost. So I don't care about bringing on new people. Like, I just want my ladies to feel good. And that's like, I think at the end of the day, whenever anything's overwhelming, if you can go back to your core values, you're never going to go wrong. No matter what your profession is, no matter what your life passion is, like, as long as you're sticking with your core values, nothing will go wrong, unless your core values suck. But
unless you got it all wrong.
Unless you've got it all wrong.
I think that's so true. Like, and I feel that's true for me as well, that because I feel like just this year I kind of got really clear on what those core values were for me. And once I got clear on that, I felt like that clarity has then turned into a lot of creativity and a lot more focused action. Because I think you're right. It's so easy if you're not honed in on and focused on what your core values are and what your purpose is. It's so easy to get overwhelmed and discouraged and bogged down with all like the little tasks. So
I think especially in like the social media sphere too, because there's so much shit going on, right? Like, there's so many people doing different things, and people are running retreats, and coaches are doing this, and strength trainers are doing that, and it's just like, ugh. And if you don't like black it all out and just say, what do I do really well? Okay, I do X, Y, and Z.
To everybody.
You just
have to be what you're good at to a few people.
And it's always right. You know what I mean? Like, as long as you're like, you have to think about your own core values. You know what I mean? Like, Sarah, you're really good at organizing and communicating and following up. Like, and in working with the training camp with you, like, you were so good at that whole process of that. So, like, I don't know. I just, you're a badass. Like, I'd be like, oh, it's Sarah. Shit, I gotta get back to her. But,
well, I mean, all that. I think all that stuff is so important. Like, you know, being focused, kind of working through your fears, finding encouragement from other people, like having a good team in your corner. What do you have any I mean, and it's a process to even get there, to even get to that point where you're like clear on your core values. You kind of know how to work through your fear, all those types of things. Like, would you say that you have any, I don't know, rituals or habits or things that you do that sort of puts you into that mental space where you can sort of work through your fears, where you can stay focused on your purpose? Like, what kinds of things do you do that you think contribute to being good at that?
I think honoring when you're like, I think we can all agree that we'll get into a zone, right? Whether it's writing, programming, emailing, or whatever. And one thing that I've noticed is honoring that wave of like, oh, I suddenly have my coaching juices flowing. I'm going to go program the shit out of all these calendars, and like, I'll go and do it. And so I think like honoring like when your brain is ready to tick, and it sounds kind of weird. But like Rochelle and I, my friend, we've talked about like how sometimes we sit down a program and we're like, well, what is she doing? Like, you know, and I'm just like, I don't even know how to program. And then I'll go for a walk, do a push-up or two, eat a snack, come back, and I'm like, I'm a wizard. Like, I can do this.
Love it.
So I think like honoring your own ebbs and flows and not being like, God, I'm such a failure. Whereas it's like, no, actually take a break. It means that you're not focused, or you're not dialed in. And not seeing it as like a failure is important. And just staying positive, like reminding yourself that you know what you're doing, you know how to write, you know how to do this. Because I think sometimes I'm like, God, I suck. I don't, like.
No.
So I guess just staying positive and taking breaks. That's something that is really hard for me. And I was working with a running coach about a year ago, and that was like one of the first pieces of advice he gave me was like, you know, take breaks, go for walks, have a pen with you, write down ideas. I think writing things down on paper is really important. And so practicing all those things, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a ritual, but practicing like writing things down. And like, oh, this is a ritual. Doing things when they come up. Like, I think I just remembered to do something for this athlete. I have to do it now, or I'm going to forget, or it's not going to get done. That is everything. Everything.
That's true. Yeah, I think I liked what you said about just being okay with your own process, because I think when I've been organizing the retreat, there are kind of like these ocean moments where it's like everything feels like it's chaos. And you're like, how am I going to do this? Or like there's this anxiety or whatever. And I kind of, the first few years that I did the retreat, I looked at that as like a sign that I was failing and that I shouldn't be doing what I was doing. Like, because I wouldn't be feeling this if I was better at this, you know? And then I realized like, okay, this is just part of the creative process. Like this anxiety, this fear, this sort of like, I don't think I can do this. Like I go through that every time I like create something new, you know? And so I think that that's just like whatever you're creating, whether it's programming for athletes, whether it's retreats, whether you're writing, like whatever it is, I think those ebbs and flows and emotions are just part of the process. Like, and so I think the more you can embrace that that's part of the process, the more you're kind of like buckled in and ready to go.
Well, it goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning too, is like, it's all going to be weird and terrifying at first, but write down 2 to 3 good things that you good at, and then focus on that. And like, I had a meeting with somebody once, and they were like, how do I start a blog? I was like, I don't know, just start writing. Like, but that's the thing. Like, maybe if you're not, if that's not something that you're good at or willing to take time and invest yourself to get good at, maybe you shouldn't write a blog. Yeah. You know, like, it's like running, right? Like, you're not going to be a good runner if you just, most of us are not going to be good runners if we just hop out the door and say, I'm going to go do this now. Like, it takes practice, and everything in life is a metaphor for running.
I know, right?
Everything is just like that. Like, if we don't practice and we don't get outside of our comfort zone and practice on the good things that we're good at, like even if you're new at running, I bet you're good at 2 really good things: staying consistent and getting sleep. I would say those are 2 awesome things for runners. So do those things really damn well. Go out and do your run every single day. Recover like a boss. I bet you in 3 months you're going to be a way better runner than you were on day 1.
Yeah. 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 I think that's so true for pretty much everything. So moving forward, what are some goals that you have for either yourself personally or Lift, Run, Perform, kind of looking into the future?
I'm going to pop my kid out.
Congratulations, by the way. Very with her first.
Yeah, I'm halfway today. It's like very bizarre.
That's exciting. It's a good milestone.
Yeah. It's been, you know what? I just talked to somebody on the phone before I talked to you, and I was like, I was very intimidated by pregnancy. And now that I'm in it, it's the same thing, right? Like it's all of the same conversation repeated itself. I'm like, I got this. Like, I'm pregnant. I can do this. And it's not as like, I just had this conception that once I got pregnant, I was going to feel like shit all the time. And I certainly have felt like crap. And I've gone through waves that have been harder, but like, I got it.
All right.
But yeah, so I think from a business perspective, my goal this year is, it's honestly not to grow. Like, I know maybe that makes me a bad business owner, but like, I don't need to grow. I want to do a really good job with the people I have. I'm going through a major life change. I'd be stupid if I didn't take that into consideration during this period. Yeah. It would be irresponsible of me to be like, I'm going to grow the business 20% and then have a kid in 4 months. Like, really, Mary? So I want to do a really good job with where we're at right now. A couple of my coaches have voiced the desire to take on more people and to go, like, hopefully turn coaching into something that's more full-time. So I think I have less personal goals this year and more goals about helping the people that I work with. Yeah. I've had other people approach me to possibly join. And what I always say, like, if the demand comes, like, I'll talk with you, but you know, the priority is like who's in house right now and where we're going. So I think I would love to just help the people that we've got right now. And then of course, you know, from an athlete perspective, people coming on and onboarding people successfully. A goal of mine is to maybe, when I have my baby, like, outsource some of that and hand it over to someone like Rochelle, who's eager to help. And I do that right now. Like, I field all of the emails and I take all the inquiries, and I don't have to. So I think maybe like letting some of the power go is a good goal of mine for this year as well. But I would like to be good, if that makes sense.
No, that makes total sense. And I mean, especially with a major life change, like, you're like growing a human, you don't have to also grow your business. You know? Yeah. I mean, but yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
I'm excited. So I do still work at the gym, and I'm going to be able to take some time away come July, which is great. So that'll be a good time where I can focus on just my people and my baby, my family. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, cool. Well, this has been super fun. We're kind of like right up against the time here. But I really enjoyed this. Thanks for showing up with me today.
Yeah.
Cool. And you guys, Mary and I collaborate. She had mentioned Mary and I collaborate on a running camp, which is going to be in New Hampshire, September 6th through 9th. And you can find information about that camp on Rise.Run.Retreat.com. So if you want more of Mary and I, you can join us.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks. Well, enjoy the rest of your vacation in Florida. This was super fun.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you. It was so nice to see you.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you soon.
You too. Okay. Bye.
Bye, Sarah.
Oh, guys, I hope that you enjoyed that. That was really fun on my end. Want to take a minute to thank our sponsors for the show today. Today's show is sponsored by TriggerPin. TriggerPin is a foam roller that I use primarily. It is my favorite foam roller. I love that it is made in the US by a small New Hampshire-based business. I love it for my tight calves, which I get from running up mountains. If you're interested in giving the TriggerPin a try, you can use code RUNFAR for 10% off on their website, tpinmuscletherapy.com. Also, the thing about Instagram live videos is that they go away in 24 hours. So if you want full access to this video, click the link in my profile. I'm going to be putting up all the full-length videos on my website, and you'll be able to view them there. So if you want more information, the link in my profile will get that to you. And next week, I will have my second guest. I'm really excited to introduce this woman. She left a corporate career to follow her heart and now spends her days telling stories with photographs. So next week is going to be a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining me and for showing up.